the first FIFA Women's World Championship for the M&M's Cup.
They came to South China to make history. They came from Brazil and Germany, historically the top two international footballing countries in the world. They came from Nigeria and Japan and the USA. They came to Guangzhou to compete in the first FIFA World Championship for women's football. The Chinese hosts said they could promise full stadiums for the matches. They were as good as their word. On November the 16th at 8:45, Salvadori Imperatori of Chile signals the start of a competition that China have been planning for a long, long time. 65,000 fans are in the Tiani Stadium in Guangzhou for the opening match, China against Norway. It was fitting that China should be hosting the first Women's World Championship because here, some 2,000 years ago, the earliest origins of football are to be found, then known as Suchu. It was played by men, and it's taken women a little longer to discover the thrill of football. By 1910, teams like Rouge Sportive and Feminine Sport in France were playing football. Interest in the women's game grew steadily, and by 1920 a factory team from northern England attracted a crowd of 53,000 at Goodison Park in Liverpool for the first international match against the Parisian team Feminina. The team from Preston, quaintly known as Dick Kerr's Ladies, had already raised £70,000 for charity. But in December 1921, the English Football Association blew the whistle on women's football, banning all their players from using their football pitches. Women's football had been shown the red card. It wasn't until the 1950s that interest in the game was rekindled. Girls were beginning to play the game in schools. 40 years later, the ultimate recognition for the sport, its first World Championship. 5 cities hosting a 2-week tournament in South China. It's an area that hopes to stage the Olympics one day, but now it was ready to put women's football on the map. The opening ceremony rivaled that of any Olympics. China was prepared to show the world that when it came to spectacle and colour, it could match the best of them. A 1,000 people took part in the opening ceremony, which lasted 40 minutes. The curtain had been raised on the championships. The phoenix is a symbol of good luck in the East, but which of the 12 teams taking part in the competition would be dealt good fortune? Often the greatest ace in football. The competition headquarters were in Guangzhou, formerly known as Canton before the Cultural Revolution. If the teams were expecting traditional China, they were in for a surprise. Guangzhou has a population of 5 million, and in the evening rush hour, you'd be forgiven for thinking most of them own bikes. With buses, taxis and lorries clogging every main road, it's the easiest, but not necessarily the quickest way of getting home at night. In some places, Guangzhou resembles a giant building site. The city is a trading post with Hong Kong, which is about 2.5 hours away by train. The skyscrapers of Guangzhou could have come straight from Hong Kong. The Norwegian team, beaten finalists in this year's European Championships, were based in Guangzhou. And before their opening match against China, which was 2 days away, there was time to make friends with the locals and perhaps win a few fans before the intimidating atmosphere of the Tiani Stadium. It wasn't going to be easy for the Norwegians. Group A was the strongest of the three. Denmark and China would provide the sternest tests. There's no organised league for women in China, but the provinces each have a team, and the sport is very strong. The national women's side was only created 6 years ago. In that time, they've won the Asian Cup for women 3 times in a row. In April, the Chinese team went to the United States to play 3 friendly internationals there. The USA team were reputed to be the strongest women's side in the world. In their final game, China beat the USA 2-1. But those were just warm-up matches. The opening game of the World Championship was just 24 hours away. The Norwegian women's team know all about the big time. They've been to 4 major finals in the previous 4 years. And less than a day before their first match, a major blow for the Norwegians. Defender Trine Stenberg injures a knee in this training session. Her pain is twofold. Her knee ligaments are damaged, and so are her chances of taking part in tomorrow's opening game. In fact, her participation in the competition was over before a ball had been kicked. Like the men's game, football can be very cruel. November the 16th, 8:30 local time. The venue, Tiani Stadium, Guangzhou. The opening ceremony is over. China and Norway get set for the first ever match between 2 women's teams in a FIFA World Championship. 65,000 fans are willing China to win as the Norwegians get the competition underway. No Norway team had ever taken part in any FIFA World Football Championship finals to date. Norway are in the white and pick up the action in the first half. Marley has taken up a good position here and makes it 1-0 after 22 minutes. Great start for China. Plenty of space here for Liu Ling, who's inside the box and brought it home. It's 2 just after half-time. And Norway are exposed again. Liu Ling tries her luck and makes it 3. So 5 minutes from the end, China pressing forward, Norway all over the place. And Queen Mensung makes it 4-0. The Chinese wall had stood firm. Norway had been intimidated by the huge crowd. They'd missed an early penalty when the score was 0-0, and now they'd paid the penalty. Final score, China 4, Norway 0. This was Norway's 95th international. They'd never taken a beating like this before. Perhaps they'd come up against the uncrowned world champions. Only the next 2 weeks would tell. The Chinese team were thrust into a whirlwind of excitement and euphoria. In the heady atmosphere of the Tiani Stadium, they were beginning to believe what the fans already knew. They were world champions in the making. It was an expectation that was to prove a heavy burden. The Chinese squad knew that Sweden and the USA would provide a tough examination of their hopes for the world crown. They were ready to do their homework. China had passed their first screen test. They were ready for their second. 3 days later, and another full house, this time at Guangzhou's Provincial Stadium, for China's next match against Denmark. The Danes had already beaten New Zealand 3-0, so the two unbeaten sides in Group A fought it out for a place in the quarter-finals. It proved to be the best match of the tournament so far. Lisbeth Kolding giving the Danes the lead. 3 minutes from half-time, China were level through Wen Sun. Into the second half now. There's a good deal of fortune about Denmark's second goal. Yang Zhou misses out here, and Hanne Nielsen makes it 2-1. But 4 minutes from full-time, China grab a late equaliser. Final score, China 2, Denmark 2. And so to China's final match against New Zealand. It was to prove their easiest of the group. Zhou Yang now with a bit of space on the edge of the box. Oh, that's a dreadful mistake by the New Zealand goalkeeper. 4-0 down, and yet New Zealand still pressing forward towards the end. Yet to score a goal in the competition, but Kim Nai has done that. 4-1 and a consolation goal for New Zealand, and they'll be delighted with that. China won 4-1 and were through to the last 8. Norway too had qualified despite the early setback against China, while Denmark, with their win against New Zealand and their draw against China, had qualified as one of the best third-place teams. New Zealand were on their way home. The smallest of the 5 Chinese cities hosting the championships is Panyu, a 30-minute car drive away from Guangzhou. Along with Foshan, the two cities were staging posts for Group B. Agriculture plays a big part in the economy of the area. The vegetables grown in these fields feed many hungry mouths. Not too surprisingly, these methods of farming haven't changed in hundreds of years. The area is dominated by the waterways, which provide a lifeblood for thousands of people. These then, the 4 teams from Group B, the United States and Sweden, favourite to go through to the quarter-finals. The United States squad were to play their first 2 games in Panyu, and before their opening game against Sweden, a chance to catch up with the shopping. It all seemed a long way from the shops back home. The USA team were determined to keep their heads in the days to come. 24 hours before the game, the USA was sliding into top gear. The squad was full of experience. 9 had played more than 35 full international matches. But one fact was bound to worry them. They'd never beaten Sweden before. One woman dominated the match, number 12 Karen Jennings, who they tease about being pigeon-toed. They call her Crazy Legs, and she drove the Swedes to distraction. The USA were 1-up at half-time through this Karen Jennings goal. They press forward again in the second period. Jennings irresistible, and so was this shot. April Heinrich scores from close range. The Swedes possessed little appetite for the battle. Mia Hamm added the United States' third goal as they set up a platform of authority. But the concentration of the US team soon went walkabout. 1 minute after Annette Hansen had missed a penalty for Sweden, Linda Wiedekool makes it 3-1. And 7 minutes later, Sweden are back in with a shout. Substitute Ingrid Johansson with this spectacular shot. The US hung on for victory, but it was close. The fans might have enjoyed it, but the US team knew that if they were to go much further in the competition, they'd have to tighten up on their defence. The US publicity wagon had rolled into China, but it had almost lost a wheel in the opening match. It was to prove a valuable lesson for the US team. 2 days later, and the United States' next match. Could the Brazilians live up to the famous footballing legends that their country had provided down the years? It was to prove a very one-sided match. On the same day, the Swedes recorded their first win of the competition, hitting Japan for 8. Beaten by Brazil and mauled by Sweden, Japan were out. In their final match, they lost 3-0 to the USA. They left China with just tears and memories. Brazil's 2 points weren't good enough to save them from elimination. Japan went home empty-handed. Group B had gone much to plan. The United States and Sweden had successfully negotiated the first hurdle. They were through to the last 8. The third and final group games were played in Xiamen, another bustling city south of Guangzhou. It was where Germany, one of the tournament favourites, were to play their opening game. The other matches in the group were in Zhongshan, where the organisers had built a new stadium for the Women's World Championships. The street markets proved to be a magnet for all Western visitors. Like every good Chinese market, there wasn't too much you couldn't buy, even if some of the goods on sale proved a little distressing for pet lovers. There were no dogs or cats on the streets of the city. Many traditional Chinese dishes include fish, and there was plenty of choice in the market. All you need is money and, of course, a basket to take your catch home. 2 days before their opening match with Nigeria, the German squad made quite a splash where they walked round the market. The European champions were tipped to reach the last 4 of the competition, but this was very new territory for them. Like all European teams, they were like fish out of water, but they were confident. They'd already captured the European crown. Could they now go one better? Once again, it was a spice of uncertainty, which makes football such a fascinating sport. Their biggest obstacle in Group C was Italy, though it was likely that both would qualify for the last 8. It was going to be a bit harder for Chinese Taipei and Nigeria. The Italians made their camp at the East Lake Hotel in Xiamen. They say football is in the blood of the Italians. It's certainly food and drink to a nation that boasts a professional women's league. They qualified for China 91 by reaching the European Championship semi-finals, where they were beaten by Germany. They had to meet Germany again here in China, but that would be in the final match of the group in Zhongshan, and by then both sides might be through to the last 8. If Roberto Baggio is the king of Italian football, then this woman is the queen. The Italians believe that Carolina Maratti is the best women's player in the world. She's the star of the national team with 60 goals in some 90 international matches, and she was soon adding to that total. Of their 3 group matches, the Italians were at their least impressive against Nigeria. But Maratti, the captain, led by example. The only goal of the game came 12 minutes from the end. Mega sets up Maratti to score. Maratti earns about 70 million lira a year from the game. That's about £40,000, and it wasn't difficult to see why. Against China Taipei, a different match, but a similar story. This goal gave Italy a 3-0 lead. After half-time, the same 2 players combine again, 4-0 now. Perhaps the Taipei team were being generous, perhaps they were tiring, as they gift-wrap Maratti's hat-trick. Italy through to the quarter-finals. But Italy still had to face Germany, the European champions. Germany had won the World Cup in Rome 17 months before. Now the German women wanted to emulate the men. If Maratti wore the number 9 shirt of Italy with pride, Germany had a similar player, number 9, Heidi Moore. Germany won this match 3-0 against China Taipei, Moore helping herself to 2 goals, including this one, to make the match safe. Moore was Germany's passport to the last 8. Nigeria found her too hot to handle, 2 more goals against them to take her tally to 4, the same as Maratti of Italy. The final match of the group was billed as a battle of the 2 women. And so it proved. They say that strikers sometimes have just one chance in a match to score. This was Maratti's. And this was Heidi Moore's. Kuhlman and Bindle, the supporting act. Moore, once again, the star of the show. If Germany crafted their first goal, the second came courtesy of Antonini, the Italian goalkeeper. But both teams had gone through to the quarter-finals. But could Nigeria or Chinese Taipei join them? They'd met just hours earlier in Xiamen. It was all smiles before the kick-off. 4 minutes into the game, all that was to change. This was the only sending off of the entire 2 weeks. Lin, in the Chinese Taipei goal, commits a professional foul, and Uche Ucharia, the Nigerian centre-forward. The El Salvador referee is in no doubt. Lin has to go. It was her last involvement in the competition. A quick reshuffle, and the reserve goalkeeper is soon pressed into service and soon forced into keeping Chinese Taipei in the game. The Nigerians, with a player more than Taipei, knew that this was their slice of luck they needed. A minute before the interval, the inevitable happened. 10-woman Taipei score. Lee Mai-chun makes it 1-0. Ten minutes into the second half, and Nigeria are beaten. Chow Tae-ying scores from close range from the corner. Nigeria are out of the Women's World Championship. But Chinese Taipei are through and join the host China in the quarter-finals. Things were looking good for the Asian sides. But it's back to the drawing board for Nigeria. Women's football in Africa is still in its infancy. Some hard footballing lessons have been learned a long way from home. Germany had come through Group C with a 100% record. Italy, along with Chinese Taipei, were also through. Sport in China isn't just a pastime, it's a national obsession. Every morning the parks are full of young and old. This is the ancient art of Tai Chi, which focuses the mind and body on the day ahead. Physical education is a major part of the school curriculum in China, and they believe in starting very young. The children who excel at sports are funneled off into a new and challenging environment where their strength and skills are encouraged to develop. This is the cream of China's sportsmen and women of tomorrow. The buildings and equipment may leave a lot to be desired, but for these youngsters, it's a chance that could lead all the way to the Olympics. Women's football is nurtured in these colleges. Players will dream of competing in a Women's World Championship one day. And today there's a special visitor. Football legend Pelé has flown in as FIFA's guest of honour. Former Brazilian international made his name playing in World Championships. His verdict on the women players? Well, afterwards he said they were coached too much and didn't express themselves enough with the ball. And so to the quarter-finals. The big guns, China, Germany and the USA had been kept apart, at least for the time being. The Americans claimed they had a player who would prove herself to be the best in the world. Meet Michelle Akers-Stoll, the woman of 5 faces. The goal poacher. The free kick expert. The markswoman. The penalty taker. And the best header of a ball in the tournament. The USA 7, Chinese Taipei 0, 5 for Akers-Stoll, a FIFA World Championship record. So the USA safely through. Now it was Germany's turn against Denmark. Germany in the white shirts, they win a penalty after 18 minutes as Heidi Moore is fouled by Sefron, the captain of Denmark. Weigmann scores from the penalty spot, 1-0 to the European champions. But Denmark are level after 25 minutes. Another penalty, this time Jensen Lund is brought down by Christine Powell. And Jepsen McKenzie has a chance to equalise. It stayed at 1-1. At full time, the two teams went into extra time, and there were 2 minutes from a penalty shootout until Germany found their match winner. Her name, Heidi Moore. If it was close between Germany and Denmark, it was a similar story in the quarter-final in Xiongmen. 11 minutes in and Hegstad gives Norway the lead. Now, it's not often you see a goal scored from beyond the halfway line, but that's how Salmaso got Italy's equaliser. "14 minutes from full time, Tina Svensson's cross finds Carlsen. 2-1 now to Norway. Norway was 60 seconds from the semi-finals. Svensson turns from heroine to villain for Norway, giving the ball to Ferraguzzi. Seth spills the ball, and the Italian substitute Guarino equalises. Extra time now, the team's just 2 minutes away from a penalty shootout when Norway win this penalty of their own. Risa brought down to win her 3rd spot kick of the competition, and Tina Svensson scores the decisive goal. The other quarter-finals pale into insignificance as far as the Chinese are concerned. This is China's big day out, the Tianyi Stadium in Guangzhou. Soon it will be filled with 60,000 fans, nearly all of them willing China into the last four of the competition. The players can feel the pressure oozing down into the dressing room. Victory against Sweden would be sweet, anything less would be unthinkable. The Chinese women's team were expected to reach the semi-finals at least. Their continuation in the tournament was important to keep up local interest. A nation expects. 20 minutes to kick off. The Swedes admitted afterwards that the huge crowd had unnerved them. But how was it going to affect the Chinese? So Sweden get us underway at the start of this quarter-final in very trying circumstances indeed. This huge crowd hoping that China can go through. Corner then to Sweden. First real chance inside the China half of the field. Sundhager's taken up a back post position. Oh, the goalkeeper's fumbled it. And Pia Sundhager scored after just 3 minutes. Well, look at Sundhager on the far post. The Chinese defenders just didn't pick her up at all. Sun Qinmei, she's found a bit of room here. She's onto her right foot. Oh, so close. Knocked back to Liu Eiling. Great shot. Oh, it hit the frame of the goal. Well, it's been a difficult first half for Sweden. This is Anderlen. Wenlirong made the challenge and Sweden have the penalty. Sundhager with a chance to make it 2-0. Oh! China are still in it. It was to be the last piece of luck China were to claim. This time it was Sweden who built a great wall around their goal, which survived wave upon wave of Chinese attacks. The Chinese had been the better side and yet hadn't won. They'd beaten Norway 4-0 in this stadium in the opening match of the tournament. Norway were through to the semi-finals along with Germany, the USA and Sweden. Defeat for the host country was as bitter as cold China tea. The curtains had been drawn on China. They were out of the World Championship. We began with 12 teams. We were down to just 4. If China were to take no further part in the competition, it was hard to find a hint of disappointment within 24 hours of the Sweden game. The Chinese love their mottos and sayings. The message from this World Championship was friendship, peace and unity. And above all, welcome to China. Ponyu, setting for the first semi-final. Norway arrive after their 40-minute drive from Guangzhou. This is Gunilla Peiskal. She's the only woman coach of the tournament, and she's taken Sweden to within 80 minutes of a World Championship final. Ervin Pelleru has plotted Norway's path to the last four. Could he point them in the right direction towards Sunday's final in Guangzhou? The game was 6 minutes old when we got the first goal. Carlsen commits the foul. And Norway, surprisingly vigilant in these situations, gives Sweden a chance. The ball is rolled into Videkul, who scores 1-0 to Sweden. Norway are stung into action. Store's through ball finds Hegstad. Medalin's after it. Leidinger makes an excellent save. Just before half-time, Norway equalise. Svensson's cross here. Medalin helping it through, and Rieser is fouled by Zijkvaldi. Svensson takes the penalty, and it's 1-1. That's the way it stayed until half-time. Plenty of excitement for the Norwegian commentator, relaying this game live back to her country. Plenty to celebrate too for the Norwegians just after half-time. Rieser again involved, Medalin forcing a way forward. Medalin has now scored in every game she's played in China. Norway not the only country broadcasting this game. And plenty more to describe. 68 minutes now, a great individual goal by Carlsen, 3-1, and Norway have sight of the final. Seven minutes left, and Norway make sure. Carlsen's shot comes off the goalkeeper. Medalin makes it 4-1. It's her fifth goal of the competition. Sweden had had a splendid World Championship. They hadn't reached the European Championship semi-finals, and yet had led Norway at one stage in the World semis. It was time for Norway to celebrate. The wave had come to China. After starting the competition with a 4-0 defeat, the team had grown in confidence. Now for the World Championship final in 3 days' time. Guangzhou, Germany versus the USA. The two coaches, Jero Bizans and Anson Dorrance, aren't giving away too many clues to their plans. The Germans feared Michelle Aker-Ståhl. They quite forgot about Karen Jennings. Now, in a little bit of trouble here, Jennings is through. She should score, and she has. 9 minutes in, the USA lead by 0-0. Jennings' fourth goal of the competition. Aker-Ståhl. Oh, how unlucky can you get? And this corner will be aimed towards the head of Michelle Aker-Ståhl. Indeed it is. And again she's denied by the woodwork. Ham finding Jennings, who can try a let from long range. 2-0, the USA lead. Half an hour in, it's all the United States of America. And that's another sloppy pass. Jennings, could this be a hat-trick? Oh yes it is. Kuhlmann gave the ball to Jennings, and she carved open Germany. Now the Germans need a goal here. Bindel, Heidi Moore, yes, 3-1. They're back in the match. There was plenty of anxiety down on the USA bench, but it wasn't to last long. Reason for their excitement: Jennings and Heinrichs had carved open Germany once again. and Jennings got the ball back off Isbert. She spotted Heinrichs on the back post. The German defenders didn't. 4-1 to the USA now. Though not for long. Weigmann pulls a goal back for Germany. It's 4-2. Seven minutes left. And the USA make it safe. Mia Hamm finds Julie Foudy down the right. Heinrichs is waiting in the middle. 5-2 to the USA. And Marion Isbert is beaten. All ends up. The third and fourth place match between Germany and Sweden proved a big day for referee Claudia Vasconcelos of Brazil, first woman ever to officiate in a FIFA World Championship. The three women officials created a lot of media coverage, but by then Guangdong Television, the host broadcaster, had the competition in sharp focus. It was a very one-sided game they covered that day. Sweden ran the show, the Germans had run out of steam. It may not have been the final, but Guangdong TV made sure pictures from China were beamed around the world, however painful that might have been in Germany. The match commentators had few problems here, providing an unbiased view of the game. Back on the pitch, things were going Sweden's way. They quickly put behind them their semi-final defeat by Norway. The same couldn't be said in any language about Germany. By the time Nielsen makes it 4-0 for Sweden, the production staff at Guangdong Television are already thinking about their evening sports show, which is broadcast only in the Guangdong province. Given the size of population, it's a massive audience. Back at the studios on the other side of town, they're just minutes away from transmission. The station usually broadcasts a mixture of Chinese historical dramas and programs about Chinese culture. The Women's World Championships has brought a dash of the unexpected to Guangdong TV, and they loved it. But meet the real star of the tournament. It's a foot high, made of marble, copper and gold, and everyone wants to have their picture taken with it. But within 24 hours, Norway or the USA would be taking it home. The singing and dancing is over. November the 30th, we're back where it all began 2 weeks before, the Tiani Stadium in Guangzhou. The Women's World Championship final, Norway in red against the USA. The USA beginning to win some free kicks now inside that Norwegian last third. I'll give them a little bit of confidence. They haven't been in the match until now. Eka Stahl likes to take these free kicks. It's just outside her sort of range. She's got a very, very powerful kick. As she trots to the far side, she'll be favourite to get her head onto this one, if she can. Knocked in by Sharon Higgins. And a goal! The woman they feared most in the air has given the USA the lead. Against the run of play, the competition's leading goal scorer makes it Norway 0, the United States 1, and it's Michelle Eka Stahl who scores for the USA. Storer got nowhere near her. She trotted away into the penalty area, took up that near post position, and when it mattered, found the back of the net.
questions against Norway's mental tenacity of just putting that goal behind them and coming back into this final. They'll need a goal before half-time, which is 12 minutes away. Remember, 40 minutes per half in the women's game. Oh, the goalkeeper got them, and an equaliser. And it's Medellin who's claimed it. The goalkeeper, Mary Harvey, will blame herself for that one, because she came for the long free kick, and Medellin got a thump in the face, but more importantly, a flick onto the ball. It's 1-1. Football hasn't been of the highest quality we've seen in these Women's World Championships, but it's certainly been absorbing. At half-time, it's Norway 1, the United States 1. The United States of America, who looked so effective when Heinrichs, Eikerstal and Jennings have synchronised in the earlier matches in the competition, just have been unable to get going for large periods of this game. And if they are going to win the Women's World Championship, I think they're going to have to do it the hard way. Guts and courage. And they have a corner now. Eikerstal gets ahead to the ball. Jennings, she might get there still. Eikerstal still has it. Driven low. It's her own player. I think Christine Lilly got in the way of Eikerstal's shot there. And despite the fact that Espeseth was right next to her, she still managed to get this shot in on goal. Indeed, it did hit the American midfield player Christine Lilly. We're 2 minutes away from the end of normal time. Norway 1, the USA 1. Karen Jennings unable to control the ball. A clutch of mistakes now by both sets of players. Eikerstal. Oh, she's through here. She's round the goalkeeper, and she scores a winning goal in the Women's World Championship final. Well, I suggested it might be a mistake to settle it, and that's exactly how it's turned out. And the best player in the world wins the World Championship trophy for the United States of America with her coolness in finishing, to take it wide of Ryden set, side put the ball over the line. Victory now is assured for the USA. That's one last throw of the dice for Norway to try find an equaliser. It's all over. The USA women's team are the world champions. Norway could hardly believe it. They were within 2 minutes of taking the game into extra time. And the outstanding player of the tournament, Michelle Eikerstal, has destroyed Norway and won the Women's World Championship for the United States of America. Well, what began on the 18th of August in Jesolo in Italy, when the USA played their first ever Women's International, comes to a climax in Guangzhou, China, as the FIFA president, Dr. Zhao Havelange, hands over the Women's World Championship trophy to April Heinrichs. The USA are the Women's World Championship winners.
Goodbye, China.